welcome back to Ascending with Ashley. I'm Ashley. This is Decolonizing Consumerism. I'm gonna do this one opposite of how I've done the others. And the others, I usually did the workbook first, but this one I'm gonna channel some shit and then I'm gonna turn it into a workbook at the end. I have the template for the workbook and the topics, but I think, what I'm gonna put, I really like the way that I put this out together, but I don't want to show you because I'm gonna turn orange, so you'll just have to wait. But all that to say is, last time we talked about, no one watched it, which is a bummer, but that's okay. We talked about name brands and slave labor, and now I want to talk about celebrities and influencers, because I think right now with the Epstein files and whatnot, I think decolonizing from celebrity culture is a really important place to start when we are decolonizing, or an important part of our process. And so I want to do that today. I think and I know a lot of us in the 90s and like growing up, we didn't have access to famous people the way that we do now. We couldn't, like, when Twitter first came out, Twitter was like the first time we could even think about having like shared space with celebrities. So Twitter was the first thing. I don't know if it came out before. Facebook was like initially a college network that took over, it got large. But Twitter was the first place that we could really connect with celebrities, and they could like respond back, right? So I think this is an important thing because I don't really know how this generation growing up thinks about celebrities, because of the ability to connect with them via TikTok, Instagram, a lot of the social media platforms. It's possible to connect with celebrities, and a lot of the celebrities, especially on TikTok, are following the trends to stay relevant, right? So what we're going to talk about over here is ways to decolonize from them. So I think that when I was growing up, I remember my sister got like this subscription to like People magazine, and there was this one portion that always irritated the fuck out of me, and it was this one page where it would had some candid picture of some celebrity doing something normal, right? Like going grocery shopping or walking down the street, or and it said celebrities are just like us, right? And it was paparazzi shit. But it there was just this huge, there was a much larger space between the reality of either interacting, celebrities were on a pedestal, I guess is an easy way to say it. And as we've seen social media be able to create fame overnight, that pedestal has really evened out, right? And now with the Epstein files, a lot of our celebrities that we really liked or respected, as well as I would say with the genocide, because I've lost a fuck ton of respect for most of Hollywood. And I think since the genocide in Palestine has been happening, it's been an easy way to understand how Israel does control Hollywood. So I lived in LA for a little while, and I hated it. It was awful. But I lived in the hood. But I mean, the hood wasn't awful. LA as a whole, it was too much. I hated it. I'm way too sensitive. It was way too many people. It's too big. It was just not for me. I always dreamed about living in LA, but then I was in Skid Row and I was like, how can Bel Air exist just a couple miles away from Skid Row? Like, how can this be a reality? Like, it's like the tale of two cities. It was the worst of times and it was the best of times, right? It's a great line of a book, by the way. That book kind of changed the way I thought about reading. But anyway, side note. So, now that we have access to social media and different platforms, and different ways to make our own businesses more relevant or more viral, more widespread, we don't really look at celebrities the same way. However, to fill in that gap, influencers have happened. And a lot of people fucking hate influencers, but that doesn't mean that there aren't tons of people who are still looking up to influencers. And I think that's something that I've become a little bit more aware of Gen Z and Gen Alpha, is the way that they're being influenced. You know, I've seen a lot of parents, some people talk about, like, not parents, but the people who work at, like, Sephora or Ulta talk about, like, the 9-year-old girls who, like, come in there and, like, the pressure. And so, what I want to talk about in regards to how we decolonize from this and why we need to is the fact that, like, when there's that large of a pedestal and someone on it, it adds to the narrative and the purpose of initiating wealth, like promoting wealth as a difficult thing to acquire, which keeps people in a space of lack, even though they are constantly being bombarded by these celebrities and influencers to continue to buy products, right? Oh, well, you know, I mean, Jennifer Aniston was like a big one now, and now she's like a potato chip. So think about celebrities for a minute. Think about the last time you saw a commercial that had a celebrity in it. And I want us to think seriously about this process of becoming famous. Fame is just, it's a higher standard of upholding the system, but when you reach a certain level of fame, you don't have your own free will. You're working for all of these other corporations or brands. You have to get contracts, right? And then you've reached this certain level of wealth that, you know, like Shaq. I'm thinking about Shaq. Now, Shaq's a good guy because he gives back, I mean, to a certain degree. You know, he gives back a lot to people, like, you know, regular people. But he also has his, I mean, think of all of the commercials and all of the products that Shaq is the face of, right? We've got the general car insurance, we've got like athlete's foot or something. You know, he's constantly showing up. So he's had to get contracts, right? And that's the thing, right? The Jennifer Aniston is, what is it, that smart popcorn or something? I don't know. There's these new commercials. Or think about when the Stranger Things finale was happening and then that fucking Discover, I don't pay for Netflix without commercials. So that Discover card commercial with the Stranger Things cast with Nancy and Jonathan was like, they played at every single commercial break, you know, it got like railed in. So think about that. So like, sure, they may have a certain level of fame or money or fortune or you know, reputation, but they're constantly having to, their work is at the, they're at the they're like puppets, right? They don't have their own free will because they're constantly, they've signed contracts. They have to do certain things, show up to certain places, and sure, there's a pay cut, but I don't know, that's not the life I would ever want. Like, I've thought about it, you know, I really want to make a difference in the world. I would like my work to be circulated at a larger level. That's what I'm working towards, but not to get to a point of influencing. I will never sell out. I want to be in control of my own means of production, and that's what I've been doing this season. I've been creating products and working on that to try and get myself, you know, more financially free. But celebrities are not, they have to do a lot of shit that you and I wouldn't want to do, and I think the Epstein Files has made that very clear, that there are certain lengths that people have gone to that are completely against their own humanity, to keep their relevance, right? So I don't know. I think that when we start to decolonize from those people or ideas, or the even the way that celebrities are used as this influencing, and again, influencers as well. Like I've seen like people, with large followings, they all find each other, or they go to these conventions together, and it's like I wouldn't want to do that. Right? Like, I think that collaborations are cool, obviously, but still, I would want my own things. Like, I don't want to have to, like, I've looked at TikTok and I'm like, how do I monetize on TikTok? Because, like, I'm gonna start producing my own products. I would love to be able to use TikTok as a way to promote them and sell them. But then I go into like I don't have 1,000 followers. I mean, I've been stuck at 950 for like 3 years, even though I create fucking content every day. It's crazy. I always get like a handful of robo followers, and then like they drop off like right when I'm starting to make like a good amount. I don't know. I've literally been stuck around it. But anyway, I was looking at the like what you have to do, to make money on TikTok with your own products, and it's like not an option for me at this point, because I don't know if it changes when you get to 1,000 views, but it's like start working with brands, and like I don't want to do that. I mean, I've actually had a lot of people reach out and like offer, but all of that stuff I would have to buy into and then make commercials about, and I'm like, no. But I've had a lot of brand deals like reach out to me, like mostly jewelry, or like, you know women's stuff. There was some baby people back when I was like starting life with Niall, like when Niall was a baby, and I was like posting a lot about motherhood. But like, I never accepted it. I mean, I've humored it for a moment, like looked at their products, but I'm like, I can't in good conscience promote these items. Like, for what? No thanks. Like, I don't want to have to, meet a certain amount of. I don't want to do that. No. No. For someone else, no. For me, yeah. For the things I'm creating, for the things that I want in the world. And so, but it's taken me a long time to get here, right? Like, it's taken me a long time to get here. So, I don't know. I guess it would be helpful to kind of, it's, I think the thing that's difficult about decolonizing from celebrities or celebrity culture is the nostalgia. Mostly the nostalgia. And I just made a comment on someone's post because they're like, millennials, what are we doing? And the propaganda has been targeted at millennials since 2020, and I've been saying this since 2020 because I started noticing it. That the system knew, because of that summer of 2020 with George Floyd and with like the global movement against white supremacy. I do believe that the vaccine had something to do with complacency and making people more complacent or apathetic. Whatever was in that vaccine. I didn't take it. I sat that one out. Thankfully, I'm proud of myself for that. I followed my intuition on that. But I mean, no offense to anyone who did take it. I think there was so much fear around it. But I'm already. You can't. The government can't propaganda me. I'm too aware. Um, I study them and their tactics like immensely. So anyway, that we had a lot of power at that time, and then all of our favorite bands from like back in the early 2000s started touring again, right? Myself included. Blink-182 is on tour again. And in fact, they're actually in Arizona right now, tonight, at the Innings Festival. And it's funny because they're playing with Public Enemy, which I'm like, what? I've met like Public Enemy. Chuck D and I have a picture together. Dogon's always like, Chuck D asked about you, and I'm like, no, he didn't. He's like, yeah, he did. Okay. Chuck D is cool with Dogon's people in LA. But anyway, I was like, oh, I'm like, I hope Tom and Chuck D talk about me. Like, I hope Chuck D, like, no, I'm kidding. We're not like that. But anyway, I thought it was interesting to see Blink-182 and Public Enemy playing together. But anyway, and I thought about it for a minute. I was like, oh, God, I would love to go to those concerts. Because, like, I'm a totally different person when I'm at a Blink-182 concert. But I haven't been to one in a really long time. But I've been to about 13 or 14 in my lifetime. Blink-182 specifically. But anyway, I thought about it for a minute, but then I was like, the tickets are almost $500, plus I'd have to drive, plus I have a kid. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. I mean, I can't do it, honestly. Um, but when we start to, the thing about Blink 182, because I was just thinking about this before I got on here, because I was like, I don't want to be hypocritical, but the cool thing about Blink 182 is that I don't know about Mark so much, but yeah, I guess he did. But all three of them created their own brands, kind of the same way that Millie Bobby Brown has created her own brands. And like Rihanna, like that's a totally different vibe than like, Revlon or falling for. And so I really respect. I think that that's a cool thing. But I was thinking because Tom started so many different brands. He had the Macbeth shoes. Travis too. Travis started a bunch of different brands. What was the shirt? Fender? No, it's an actual band. Feet? No, what? I don't know. Travis started. I mean, they always had like graphic T-shirts, or they started their own fucking lines of shit, right? And then Tom did like a bunch of other. Tom is like a really cool entrepreneur, which is funny because he's like been my person forever. But he's really influenced me a lot when it comes to the business world. And so I guess that's the thing. Think about when we decolonize from celebrities, or like fame in general, or just the way that like Hollywood promotes anything. Because now that we know, so Israel is in their, this country has been bought and sold. The CIA is run by Israel, and the Hollywood promotes an Israeli agenda. And you have to be a certain level of conscious to see that. But if you watch movies, you can see how much. Like what was that movie with Dane Cook? Chuck? Good Luck Chuck? Highly inappropriate movie. I was like, ew, because he's like, it was like porn, essentially. But his friend in that movie was really gross. And I used to like that shit, like, dirty jokes. Because, I mean, Blink 182, I grew up on that shit. I grew up on, like, stoner movies and shit. But this was gross. Like, this is Jessica Alba's in that movie, too. I mean, I loved Dane Cook back in the day when he first came out. But again, as they get bigger, Dane Cook was a stand-up comedian first and foremost. And he got big on his stand-up comedian. And then he became in Hollywood. And he had that one movie with Jessica Simpson, and he had a couple movies, and then he fell off. Like, he's irrelevant. But he was so fucking funny back in the day. The car accident fucking sketch, oh god, that was my favorite, because I was like crazy driver. I got in so many car accidents back in the day. Anyway. But they lose their soul. I mean, people talk about how they sign their soul away. And I mean, now that the Epstein stuff has come out, it's pretty evident that they are forced into horrible things. Not everyone, and a lot of people, I don't know, maybe they don't do that. But I believe it's everyone who has a certain amount of fame or fortune. I think, there's a conversation online talking about, like, one-hit wonders or people who, like, refused to, do those things. Or, like, there's the 27 Club where, like, a bunch of these celebrities have... That was a mouse in my wall. Anyway. Yes, even with all these cats, they can't get into the attic. But anyway, and what was I saying? I don't remember. So, I think the thing about this is, like, decolonizing is a part of shadow work, and, I see them as one and the same, because it takes a certain level of self-knowing to be able to have a critical eye about things that meant a lot to us at one point in time, right? So, like, if Blink-182 started, I'm like, Ryan Reynolds with that, like, Mint Mobile, I think he created his own company, but I'm just thinking about commercials where, like, there's these cameos. Maybe there is online, but I don't think I've ever seen. I've never seen Tom make a commercial for, like, Macbeth shoes. I should get another pair of those. I had a pair, I never wore them, but they're really cute. Do they still sell those? What is the Travis Barker's brands? But like Travis marrying a Kardashian and not even the one that he's like in love with, because apparently, oh, Famous Stars and Straps. I knew it was an F. Streetwear line. So he founded that in '99. Macbeth shoes. Tom DeLonge started those. Oh, these are a lot more expensive than they used to be. What? Walmart? Oh. Walmart sells Macbeth shoes? Damn. That's crazy. I'll probably get a pair because they kind of look like Sambas. I've always wanted a pair of Sambas. I don't know. I used to have a brown and pink pair of Macbeths, but like I said, I never wear brown or pink, so I literally never wear those shoes. Oh god, the coolest pair of shoes I had at one point were like these. Ooh, I like the black ones. Anyway, that's hot. So check out Macbeth's shoes if you want Tom DeLonge's brand. But anyway, I think, you know, not everyone is an entrepreneur, but I think like the societal pressure, especially like something I've noticed recently is how stupid we all sound because we're all sharing like Gen Z language. And I don't mean that as a diss to Gen Z, even though they diss us all the time. But what I mean is we all had that like part of our lives where we sounded like that, like where we all used slang, you know. But when you're hearing like people say like it's giving low key for real, right? Like I'm like, we all sound cringe, which is irony, okay? But honestly, I don't know. So like the internet serves as this purpose to like bring us together and like make the world smaller and like more obtainable for us to experience, but it also does us a disservice because we all sound like a bunch of fucking morons, and I think it makes us, you know, people can choose what they want to see. That's a problem. But I say that a lot. Like I talk about that a lot on my videos about how big of a problem it is to only see what you're interested in. That's bad. Okay? So anyway, alright. So I hope this makes sense. Like celebrities are paid to do the job of keeping us distracted. And they themselves have handlers. They have contracts. They have managers. Yeah, they have people who do all that stuff for them. But they lose their freedom. They lose their ability to be just a human being for fame, right? Like they can't just, you know, celebrities are just like us. They can't just like go out in the world anymore without being noticed. I mean, I think this shift is happening from, I don't think celebrities are going to be, I don't know. Everything is being like outsourced to, like the pedestal of celebrities, again, as we knew it, is like way down here. And then there's like influencers. There's a very little gap because of the population choosing what they like. So people assume that's like consumer power, but it's really not. It's just them watching the patterns. And then you watch the celebrities that they've like deemed as like holding up the agenda, to like, you know, if an influencer gets famous doing like the demure, do you guys remember that demure, very demure, do you remember that, how that person blew up overnight, and then like their life changed? Yeah, it happens, but think about that. I don't know, I think about it a lot. I don't know. But I think that celebrities, the main thing, celebrities and influencers are serving the purpose of the elite. Because influencers usually start with promoting brands that already exist. Very rarely is it their own brands, right? Again, with Blink-182 and Rihanna and shit, you have to reach a certain level of fame in order to be able, you know, like the Kardashians too, they create those businesses all the time that are very successful, but why do, like when Kim Kardashian came out with those pubic hair thongs last year, and they were sold out within like the first two. Are you kidding me? You could just like grow your pubic hair and be naked. Why did people buy that? Like, you know, and I think that celebrities, I used to really appreciate SNL because I thought it was funny, but then I realized that they're just making fun of all of us. Celebrities exist because we make them relevant, because we continue to pay for their fame and fortune while we are all struggling to buy groceries or, pay rent. It's like a mental illness. It's a mental illness to focus, but I think it's a mental illness that feels like it's more. I don't use that term a lot either, but I do see this as a mental illness to a certain degree because celebrities are puppets, just like the president. The president was a celebrity first, before he was a president. Okay. I hope that this helps. I know it's hard to decolonize from these things, but celebrities serve the purpose of the elite, of the blood-sucking powers that be, right? There's a lot of relationship that we don't know about, that we're not supposed to know about. I touched on that. The CIA. There's this one scene in that 70s show where Hyde says there are the three branches of the government: the military, Hollywood, and I don't remember what else. Hollywood, the military, and I don't remember the other one, but I do specifically remember Hollywood and the military. And so, we're indoctrinated to believe it's like this incredibly just system, legislative, executive branches, and bullshit. Clearly, that's not true. And so when Hollywood, I remember when Arnold Schwarzenegger he was the governor for California. And it was like this big thing because he was like a celebrity, but Ronald Reagan was also a celebrity first. And, Ronald Reagan is the first president that was in the Epstein files. Now, those Epstein files that were released did have names that were not, it was not possible. So, I don't know. We don't know. But they did that on purpose. I'm thinking of Whoa Vicky right now, because she went to a Hollywood party and she was supposed to sign an NDA, and then like everyone's like, oh my god, she's trafficked now, and she's like on live constantly. I think about her, right? Think about what, if you are someone who's like striving to be an influencer, ask yourself what your goal of doing that is. Is it to have fame? Is it to have fortune? There's been a few readings, like tarot readings, that I've heard the past year or so that keep saying, like, you can be rich without having to be famous. Do you want, like, to be famous, or do you want to be rich? Or do you want both? For me, as I continue to grow on my platforms, I would love to be... I have large goals that I'm not going to share here, but I've always known that in my life I'm going to eventually be doing these things. Like, this is my goals, right? There are things that I've always known to be true for myself, but I've had to get here. And I feel like I'm on the right road, but I'm not like at my destination, you know what I mean? But like, I've had to take a lot of detours to get here. I know that's a crazy ass metaphor, but hopefully you get it. But my goal has never been to be like apathetically famous or, isolated in Beverly Hills with a bunch of contracts. I want to control my own means of production. Not necessarily I'm the only one doing it, but I want to have the tools and the machinery necessary to be able to create my own products, whether I hire others to support me in that later on. Hopefully my shit'll blow up and it'll be, something that people want. But I will never sell my ideas. I was talking to my mentor last week, a couple weeks ago, and I said, I'm like, I have plenty of ideas. Like, I'm not short of ideas. I'm short funding to carry out my ideas. And so for me, getting to a certain degree of, I would like to influence people because I know I'm a good person, and I know that if I had that money, I would use it to help others. I have always said that. That question that they always ask us when we were little, what would you do if you won the lottery? My response has literally always been, like, I would take care of myself. I'd make sure that I had a house and shit, and like my kids were cool. But then I would like give that money away. I would build with that money, because I think it's so frustrating to see people who have a lot of money and influence do selfish things with it, right? And there's a fine line, right? Creating your own product, but are you giving back, right? And now that we have this information that just came out, it's like, no, they're actually like literally murdering, eating, raping children, which shouldn't surprise us because we've been watching that happen in Palestine and Congo, in Sudan for the past few years. These powers that be are funding death at any rate they can, right? Like any way that they can kill innocent women and children and life, they are doing so. So I guess it's just like I think that all celebrities need to be decolonized from. I went through a lot in my late 20s where I was like, I don't even want to listen to Blink-182 anymore, But as I've reclaimed, like, as I've healed my inner child, Blink-182 is an important part of my life, for me, because they were the only ones there on those days that, like, I needed, the music. Those guys got me through every fucking thing. They're a really big part of myself. I started listening to them when I was 12. I went to the first concert when I was 13. I just turned 39 yesterday. Like, they're a huge part of my life. That's a long time. And they're still fucking around and touring and, and that's the thing. They've had their ups and downs and side projects and hiatuses, and they've always found their way back to each other because the music brings them together, But, I don't know. I just know that I picked a good band when I was like, I need someone who's not Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, because that's what everyone else was doing. So I think celebrities it's important for us to decolonize from them, right? Because, again, we chase this nostalgia, but, like, instead of, like, obsessing over celebrities, I think when we're in this decolonizing process, it's important to be like, why do I, like what I just said, like, they're a big part of my life, but, like, they're not my life, right? Like they meant so much to me when I was like 13 and through high school when my dad died, and I got through a lot because of Blink-182. But I'm the one that got me through that stuff, right? Like, Tom never, held my hand through that shit as much as I wanted him to. We were never, I met him once, but they were never like there for me, right? I was the one there for me, using them as a way to get through. So I think that's the thing that people, because a lot of people are talking about, like, well, what if my favorite celebrity is on the list? And I don't even want to look because I don't want to, like, destroy this, bubble of ignorance that we have, right? And I think that's just such an important thing as Americans to recognize that for what it is this bubble of ignorance that we exist in. And again, it's done by design. Because America and Israel are literally the only two countries on the entire planet that say that food is not a human right, right? These are the people that are trying to take over the world right now. Real talk. And celebrities and influencers, like, think of Elise Myers. Like, she blew up, she was great, but then she didn't say anything about Palestine, and she lost a lot. She lost, I, for one, stopped following her because, her and Miss Rachel had a collaboration right before people were starting to demand that Elise say something in support of Palestine, and she had already been bought by Israel, so she couldn't. She could not say anything against Israel. I will never, and I think that's what selling out is. Listen to the song Sell Out by Real Big Fish. But like let that get to my I will never let myself get to that point. I will always be in my own integrity. Again, I have my own products, I have my own ideas. If and when I receive the fame or money to support those things, then I will establish those. And I'm creating businesses that I see as models. So they're not only things that I can do in my area, but they become a model that we can, utilize in other areas. Other places can also do the same model. And I've really done my best to initiate that as a business plan. My LLC is called The Future for All, and my projects, the art space, that could be implemented anywhere, right? If I had the money to buy a bunch of old vehicles and turn them into art mobiles and like put them in communities and have community organizations that already exist, like give them, that would be incredible, right? That's what I would fucking do with my money. But what do we see celebrities doing? The contracts that they have to sign, they're probably limited in the ways that they can even use their money, right? Or they keep just buying, and supporting each other, right? Like Reese Witherspoon and Drew Barrymore, like supporting each other's like brands or whatever, or like Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg, right? Like we see these really weird collaborations, but honestly, it's probably a part of like the woe factor, the way that people are like, what? I remember when fucking Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart became like, but it was like a scandal. People were like, what? Those two? But there was probably like some fine print somewhere that like made that happen, because the extreme wow factor is what's going to make shit sell. I mean, I bet if we look that up, Martha Stewart's fucking cookbooks went crazy. And didn't Snoop Dogg make his own cookbook after that? Let's look this up a little bit. Martha Stewart and yes, Stewart and Snoop Dogg. Alright, let's look at... Oh, they have a show. Oh, that was a long time ago. That was like 10 years ago. I didn't know. And that's the thing. You don't need to keep up with them, because it's not going to impact your life, right? Okay, yeah. Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart's relationship is a real, unlikely, but strong friendship and business partnership that started in 2008 when he appeared on her cooking show. Ooh, that makes me uncomfortable. That's weird. I don't like that. He returned to bake brownies, solidifying their... So they did it for views. They did it for that wow factor. I was right. But, like, think about that, right? Or think about the people who have... Like, Kelly Clarkson is an interesting one, because she was a normal person, which is this idea of influencing, right? That we're seeing with social media. But again, like... Now that the ownership for social media has changed, especially for TikTok in particular, because Mark Zuckerberg is the one that created Facebook back in the day, but then he sold it to, and then he lost his soul. Right? Ooh, sold and soul. Huh. Sold his soul. But anyway, oh, Kelly Clarkson. So... she was like this representative for like weight loss and shit for a while, and then she like gained it all back, and then like now she's got that talk show. But she won. Was she the first American Idol winner? It was very early on. I think she was the first one. But now she was like a spokesperson for Wayfair, and we know now that Wayfair's, and people were talking and speculating about Wayfair being in like selling and human trafficking children in 2020, but most people are just hearing about it nowadays with the Epstein file release. And so it's just like, okay, so you were a regular person who got fame, and now you're a spokesperson for a company that is known and now has been proven to be linked with human trafficking. So everyone you have on your talk show, are you guys like sacrificing babies but backstage, right? Like think about that. Like, it's crazy, right? I don't really want to get into Ellen, but I mean, we could talk about Ellen. Think about Twitch, and how Twitch, died of suicide. No, he didn't. and, Ellen's old girlfriend, Anne Hatch, or whatever her name is. They had that footage from her, like, sitting up on the stretcher in LA. Hollywood is so corrupt. And I will say, I've lived a lot of places. I was born in Atlanta. I lived in Ohio and Wisconsin and Arizona and California. I've traveled overseas to several different countries. I have never in my life been to a more demonic space than Los Angeles. It was awful. And I got trafficked in Los Angeles. And there's still, a few weeks that I will never recover. I don't know what drugs they gave me. I don't know what they did to my body. I had some people advocating for me on the outside, but baby daddy just kept taking me to fucking hospitals. Or like calling the people on me. Like literally for 6 months, I was all over Los Angeles. So I know it's very, like, my friend Amanda, I talked to her about it because she was the only one advocating for me outside. And I was like, I asked her just a few months ago, we just reconnected, and I was like, what happened? And she was like, Ashley, they were trying to disappear you. And I said to her, she was like, I kept calling and I was pretending to be your sister. And she was like trying to find me. And, if you don't have people advocating for you, because I did get lost in the system. And, baby daddy told me right before he did that, he's like, I think I just sold you for these pills or something. And then he took me to this like 2.5 hour away hospital. That was the day I started smoking again, Marbreds, because I was like, oh my god, you're about to lock me up. And I got drugged there, and they were doing like crazy MK Ultra stuff. But this isn't what the conversation is about, but it is about LA and the way that they move people. So like the colleges also prey on like the regular people, especially poor folks. So UCLA is in the Epstein files. I'm sure USC is as well, but USC is a private school. But UCLA, I experienced trauma that had to do with both schools because USC runs the county hospital, and that's the hospital that I have so much trauma from that hospital from like many different times. I bit a doctor and like tried to escape, and they like drugged the fuck out of me and shackled me. I got shackled so much in Los Angeles. So the reality is that these people have power, a lot of it, and when we give them that power by continuing to buy the products that they market for, that we maintain their contracts by giving into that. So I think we should all stop doing that and do the best you can. I mean, thrifting, making your own stuff, buying shit cheaper, or not cheaper, but locally, or we're going to talk about globalization as we go, because I'm thinking about China and the exploitation that happens for a lot of the products that we receive, and now the tariffs and everything have kind of muddied that a little bit. But the means of production, Trump has done a lot to I'm not saying he's a good man by any means, but I am saying when I buy shit, Temu used to be like a foreign website, and now a lot of this stuff there's like warehouses in the United States that have those products. So there's some sort of global network, and I think we're seeing that as well with the Epstein files, the global trafficking networks, the global corporations, right? Globalization as a whole. We can talk about globalization next, but I just want you to stop fucking doing shit because famous people are telling you to. Please. Stop worshiping these people. Everything is staged, right? You've got NBA and NFL players coming out and being like, everything is fucking decided before we even do shit, right? And not to mention that all of the professional sports are rooted in like Colosseum, like Roman and slavery, right? Have you ever seen Django and the way that they used to make them like wrestle and shit? Wrestle to the death? All of the professional sports, like, look at who owns those. Look at who owns the teams. Go notice who owns the teams. There's going to be a majority demographic there, friends. Same as what we talked about with the name brands. Old white men. Old white rich men. You know, this system has always been the same since colonization, since, you know, Columbus got his stupid white ass here. These people and have the generational wealth. You know, I believe it's deeper than that. You already know that. I believe they're like vampire people. Or something monstrous. I mean, you have to be. You have to be. Because money isn't real. And, like, everything that is real is being... Not is real. Everything that is real is, you know, being killed. So, celebrities are puppets. And your ability to reach that status is going to cost you your real freedom. Because you're going to have to do things... You're going to have to perform. You're going to have to do things you don't want to do. So think very clear and hard about whether or not that's the reality you really want for yourself when you're pursuing fame and fortune or, you know, buying shit because everybody else has it. There's nothing wrong with being different in a world that is fucking nuts. Okay? Have a good one. I hope this helps. Fuck celebrities. Bye.